10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 450. Hey everybody, welcome back to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 450. Can't believe it's April already. So we just finished up our series on density, which was a long one, and we're going to do something a little bit different this month. This month, we're going to do something kind of interesting. We're going to look at 3 jazz standards that have a very particular modulation in them. And our goal this month is going to be to actually work on these 3 tunes, and the thread that sort of ties them all together is going to be this particular really interesting, somewhat unique modulation that you don't see every day. Now, just working on these 3 tunes, especially if you're not familiar with them, will be awesome for you. And even if you are familiar with some of them, really latching on to some of the stuff that we're going to talk about and being able to hear that modulation, that's going to be so good for you. And you're going to be able to go out into the world and hear this particular harmonic movement. But let's dive in. So the first one that we are going to deal with is going to be the tune I Love You by Cole Porter, one of my favorite jazz standards, and I think one of the most interesting ones. Now, the sheets that I'm going to give to the Patreon members, the chord sheets to work on this, what we're going for, and you guys know that I do this if you've been following me for a while, the chord sheet is going to have the minimum viable information on it, meaning that it's really just going to be a couple of key centers, because I'm a big fan, first of all, of approaching tunes this way, because it allows us to get in some reps, play a bunch of choruses of solo, and also think about the chord progression in the simplest manner possible. And I think that's a really great way to get started with any tune, is to just, reduce it down to its essential information. And usually that's just some key centers. Because when we do that, we're using our ears, we're using our creativity to actually figure out what to play. Okay, so you're going to notice that if you're a Patreon member, you're going to get a sheet. It's going to be very, very open. So this tune, I Love You, it's played in concert F major. So that's sort of like the first thing we want to get into our ears, is just the sound of F major. All right, so let's talk about the modulation that we're going to be studying through these 3 tunes. Basically, these 3 tunes that I'm going to present to you, they modulate from the home key, so in this case it's F major, up a major third. So in this case, it modulates to the key of A major. And it's a really interesting sound. We don't hear this super often. Usually we hear like a bridge going up to the key of the 4 or something like that, maybe to the relative minor. But this is one of those sounds that if we can learn to hear it, it's a big advantage, because it's weird, right? Like, listen to it. Right? It's a very, very unique sound. And although we don't hear it very often, if we do know how to hear it, that's great. That means that our ears are really, really working. So if I were to play the first 16 bars, see if you can hear where it modulates from the key of F to the key of A. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty cool sound, isn't it? And it's one of the characteristic parts of that particular tune. And the interesting thing is that whenever this happens in a tune, it is usually one of the defining characteristics of that tune. And you could hear it really, really clearly, but it can be hard to identify. So my hope is that you sort of walk away from this series this month. Oh, I can hear that. Let's listen to it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I hope that just through maybe those 2 repetitions, you're already starting to wrap your ears around what that sounds like. Okay, so what are we going to do as far as assignments go for this week? Well, if you don't know I Love You, I highly suggest learning the melody first off of a recording, whatever you want to do. There's a great Coltrane recording of this. That's where I learned the melody. And then you want to take that chord sheet that I'm providing you with, and you want to just start to solo over it. And you want to start getting used to that transition of, okay, basically I'm playing an F mostly, and then I have to make a transition to a very foreign key, A major. Now, for B flat instruments, tenor sax, trumpet, it goes from G to B major. And that can be a tricky key for us instrumentalists. B is not the most friendly key on saxophone, and I imagine on trumpet too. And for E flat instruments, oh my gosh, it's kind of even harder. It goes from the key of D to the key of F sharp major. So on top of just being able to hear it, it's also going to kind of test your ability to play in one of the harder keys. And on top of just being able to play in a harder key, you have to make a transition from 2 keys that are, not the opposite of each other, but that are very different from each other. Think about it. F major, 1 flat, to A major, 3 sharps. Those are pretty far away from each other on the circle of fifths, right? So it's just really, really good work because it's like, okay, really comfortable, familiar key to, oh, okay, maybe a key that's, first of all, very different, but second of all, might just be like harder in general on your instrument. So that's basically it. You want to learn the melody. I really highly suggest learning this melody first and being able to play that before you do like really any work with this. Because the melody, especially in the absence of a bunch of chord changes, the melody is going to be a really, really important thing for you to know and be able to work off of. It's going to inform so much of your solo in the absence of a really complicated chord sheet, if that makes sense. So you learn the melody and then just get a bunch of reps in. I'll have a bunch of trading tracks for you for the Patreon members so that there's something there that you can practice along with, which always really helps, in my opinion. That just really helps with the motivation and all that kind of stuff. And that's about it. All right. And then next week, we'll go over our next tune that has the exact same modulation. And in this case, it's actually in the same key and it happens in the same place. So I'll leave you in suspense on what tune that actually is. Now, if you hear me talking about Patreon, you don't know what I'm talking about. We're a listener-supported podcast, which means we don't do any ads or anything. We just rely on listeners like you to support us. And in return for a small monthly donation, you get all the materials to just hit the ground running and practice this stuff that I'm talking about. We do that through the Patreon platform. You can find out more and see the different levels of support by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners or going to patreon.com and searching for the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Now, I have one request for you. If you sign up to support us on the Patreon app, on any Apple device, Apple has decided that they're going to take 30% of that donation in perpetuity and keep it for themselves. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think Apple really needs that money. And, I'm not getting rich off of your $3 and $5 donations. So it'd really mean a lot to me if when you first sign up, you just do it on a web browser on your computer. Once you are signed up, you can use the app and all that kind of stuff. But it just really helps us keep the show going if we can avoid that 30% of an already small donation taken off the top. So I'd really appreciate that. Just go on a computer, go on a regular old web browser, sign up, and then you can go back to using the app. Want to give a quick shout out to a new patron this week. Thank you to Nick for signing up. And of course, to the over 350 members we have over there. Really, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. We could not do this without you, and you're the reason that the show keeps going. So again, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, or patreon.com, search for the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast on a computer to get signed up. All right, everybody, have fun with this, and we will see you next week with the next tune. Bye.